I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Steve, and this is All the Mods Tin to the Sky. So today's the day, the final day of the All the Mods Tin to the Sky, where we have now completed the entire pack, going from a tree to creative mode, basically. Now, as always, with this being the last episode, it is also World Download Day, and just happens to be episode 40, technically, of this series. And so, if you're a supporter of any tier, whether that is on Patreon, on Twitch, here is a YouTube member, or through the Discord, be sure to get your World Download all linked over on the Discord in the World Downloads channel. You just gotta get your account linked up, make sure everything's verified through Discord, and you'll see that new shiny channel. Yes. And you can get your world download directly from there. Now, since this is the last episode, what are some things that we can actually do to call this wraps? Well, I think making as many of the creative items and setting them on some pedestals as we can is going to be a pretty fun challenge. And I think we should also claim a new king for this world, a new owner of said island. Well, honestly, he's been the owner the entire time. Yes, you know who I'm talking about. Steve. As remember, after all, this is Steve's island, and well, we still have Steve, who has been lingering back here the entire time, enjoying his nice little stack of pancakes. It's been kind of nice. So you know what? Let's pick good old Steve up, and we should also probably name tag Steve. That would be kind of convenient now that we have access to stuff like that. Should be a lot easier. And what I'm going to do is place Steve directly on his new throne. Look at that. Ah, fantastic. And we're going to surround Steve with all of the creative items that we are going to make today. I've got all of my stands set up. Now, the first thing I want to do is, well, I want to name tag Steve, and I don't actually have any name tags at the moment. We can take a look. Name tags. Look at that. None of them. And I don't even have the cardboard to be able to craft a name tag using the create recipe. And I also don't have a villager set up. So what would be the best way at my current moment to get a name tag? Creative items. And before we do a little world tour, might as well make the creative spell book, since it is just simply using an ATM star and combining it with our unobtainium spell book. This actually unlocks every single spell inside of the book, which is fantastic, by the way. And you also still get, I believe, the pages. Maybe actually not. Maybe we don't get all of the extra spell slot pages. I think this just quite literally allows us to, yeah. Oh no, we do. We get all of the spell book. Oh, look at that. Yes, so this is the same, but every single spell in the game is automatically unlocked with the creative spell book. That's kind of what it does. It doesn't have unlimited source or anything like that. It just simply unlocks everything so we don't have to make them all. Very nice. And so what does this let me do? Also, by the way, it does wipe all of your spells whenever you craft this, so just keep that in mind. But underneath here, we can do a projectile and then a name tag. And under the name tag, we just put Steve in here, just like so. Perfect. And once we hit create, whatever we shoot this on will then be named Steve. You can see right here, it's a name tag that's constantly reusable. Gotta love this. Okay, so perfect. There's our first creative item that is going to be stored on the display stands, and we have 8 of them because I technically have 8 of these items to make today. But before we get into crafting all of them, I do want to go on a little bit of a tour. Technically, we started on this island here that didn't really have much at all on it. If we pop down, you'll see it was a simple island right here that had a little funnel on top and a little RV. That's basically how we started out. And yeah, we have really gone and built up. Yeah, but just about everything kind of started humbly downstairs here with our sieving solution, and it's still running even now on almost the exact same setup with a few things upgraded. For example, the netherite generator, block generator, has now been upgraded, supplying all of the cobblestone, and these are now running on the highest tier with their fantastic meshes on here, which I did find out can run higher levels of fortune. And these have been constantly producing and has been running flawlessly. Also utilizing this create method in order to sieve the actual soul sand and produce soul sand has been phenomenal. And it even keeps up in the higher tiers just fine. We started with our lava generation for power, and we worked our way up to 64 times magmatic generators, which have been performing very well and are surprisingly still being used. to this day, which yeah, most of the power also, though, comes from here to supply most of this, but this was able to keep up with all of the basic upgrades. Now, in reality, all of our other civs were just fine, just using some basic extractors. I never really needed more than what it was passively producing, except for, well, yeah, we needed a bit more of the Instone, and that process we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, this worked out very early game. I mean, we had tons of ores to work with, and our little ore processing setup was able to keep up with how fast this was producing at the base speed. And even though it may look like a mess over here, the mob farm is definitely, yeah, the thing that takes the show. This thing has produced so many things for us, all the way from redstone to iron to coal to all of the things from apotheosis, including gems, all the way up into the perfect tiers. This farm has really proven itself. And it only is 3x3 of cursed earth. I mean, that's really it, of the dreadful dirt. Just a 3x3. And it produces so much from that. Some other small things that I want to note that we did in this series, we utilized Applied Energistics to simply automate the brewing stands, and I kind of showed how you can use importers and exporters to manage that successfully. We also set up a little bit of apotheosis, as we didn't really need the highest of high tiers of things, because we were able to use the printer from, well, the Create Enchantment Industries, right? And we were able to automate the duplication of books and send them into the enchantment library, which, man, this thing is fantastic for getting all of your enchants set up. And enchants are very important if you're using Ars gear like I am, for example, as you really want to get your hands on that mana regen and, of course, mana boost. Now, the real powerhouse is right behind me. This is the AE system, or at least access to the AE system. And man, did I go wild with AE. And like I said, I'm going to generate more channels than I'll ever use, and I definitely did that. But man, you just can't knock the fact that this looks so good. And that's kind of what I was going for. More of an aesthetic thing. We had so many resources coming in. I was like, why not get creative with it and actually make this look like its branches hanging off, sort of like you would see on like a circuit board, for example. And I carried that up top here, and this is where most of them were used, as I wanted to display them and be able to connect to them like this. This is a fantastic method of setting up your Applied Energistics. That way you can manage your channels. Anytime you need more channels, you just drop in one of these wireless connectors, and voila, you have access to 32 more channels. That way you don't have to worry about potentially running out. Anytime you run out, you just slap down a new one, and you're ready to go within your base. And as progression goes, we set up all of our auto crafting. I was using these as our co-processing units and our crafters early on, but we eventually were able to upgrade into the quantum computer and, well, also the assembly matrix. This one from Advanced AE, which is an add-on, and this is from Extended AE, which is another add-on. But both of them combined together produce a crafting medley that is absolutely beautiful. And I tell you what, incredibly fast. Some of the fastest crafting I've ever seen in modded Minecraft. Now, as we work our way through the main section of the tower, I can't forget this, which is the mystical agriculture farm that is utilizing Applied Energistics and also the red fertilizer down here on the crops. This is all collected here and gets turned into Inferium, but you may be wondering, what is all those pink particles that are flowing? Well, I did place an agronomic source link up here, and this is collecting all of that, storing it inside of source jars, and then this source jar is then being routed up top into our Rs area, where we do have everything automated. And most of this is being handled with modular routers. Basically, it's pulling out of our Applied Energistics system, and it is sending all of the items around, automatically filtering and pulling the correct things out, keeping essences constantly generated in stock. Then that leads us up to this section, and this section is very, very powerful. By the way, I have been, well, smelting a few things, carrying over items from this area into here. And I just want to show you something. This is another great way to get XP in this pack. If you are looking for a large supply of XP, just let items build up in here and then pull them out. I mean, I just got myself 1,281 levels from all of the stuff that we've been processing from here. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And I guarantee there is a ton of XP that is passively stored in here if I just removed the input and pulled it out myself. But now back to this. I tell you what, this is what made this mod pack insane. These budding gears and the ability to accelerate them with the growth accelerator tier mod has been wild. This has been ridiculous. And man, it was perfectly comboed with the stack upgrade omega tiers being available, allowing us to have infinite storage inside of our barrels. This has really been an interesting experience. And I went with really small setups, but I've seen people build these things to like max size for these hammers, where you could have like the pickaxe hammer at max size an entire area. Just absolutely absurd amount of resources coming in. Now, honestly, if you blink, you'll miss it, but this was my main power starting out. I mean, we built ourselves up through the reactor tiers, and I eventually ended up with the nitro reactors. Once you get a little bit of power going from here, making your nitro is very, very easy within the power mod. So I ended up going with about 6 of them, which was netting me close to like 3 million FE per tick, which was able to handle me all the way through mid-game into in-game. Believe it or not, that was more than enough power to completely handle everything I was working on. Now, also inside this room, which is very technology filled, this is where I'm actually passively crafting logic circuits. And I wanted to have a large supply of them in stock, so that way, if I need to craft, for example, a 16 mega storage component, I can actually do this, or I craft any tier of those mega components. I could do so and do it incredibly quickly. This was primarily to net me the lava disk, which did require a lot of logic processors, and having them already crafted up saves you so many steps in the crafting process, making the auto crafting so much faster whenever you hit that button. Now, another thing that we did here is we automated vibranium, and in this pack early on, it did kind of require this setup with these items to automate vibranium. Of course, they did add the gears shortly after, which did allow me to kind of turn this off and no longer need it. But yes, you can actually have multiple Ender crafters within this giant bundle. And we did max out the size of the Ender crafting setup, basically maxed out the entire size and filled the whole area with about as many of these alternators as you can get in here, making it as fast as possible. And boy, decorating this thing was definitely a hassle. I would say it's not the prettiest thing in the world. Now, it was at this moment I realized, well, we're going to have to continue expanding up on our tower. And thus, our teleportation network began. I was like, man, I'm going to need some way to teleport around. And this time, I decided to go with teleporters for mechanism, because I really wanted to show these off and show how cool they are. Now, these portal frames usually are not facadable, but we do have this amazing mod in here called Camo, or Camel, I guess you could say. And the Camel is incredible. If I hold one of these, you can then see all of the underlying things underneath. And I believe you can shift right click while holding another camo block to show and expose what it actually looks like. But it's just as easy as right clicking it. And we were able to camo just about everything in here. You wanted to camo an applied energistics cable, you would just right click this on here and it does the job. What a fantastic mod, allowing me to actually decorate these mechanism portal frames. Speaking of mechanism portal frames, let's go through here and we enter into the technology zone. There is so much that is happening inside this area. On the bottom level, we are handling all of the industrial foregoing setups, and we did have a texture change in industrial foregoing while playing this, but all of this was set up to be able to produce tons of blocks with the material stonework factories, and I wanted to work my way to getting these tier 8 upgrades to make these go so fast. And it may not look as fast as you've seen before, but you got to keep in mind, this is also producing multiple items every time it does an operation, not just a singular item. All of the stuff that you see here is producing materials that are needed for it. For example, we needed sludge. We also needed biofuel and many other things. All of these setups here essentially are making all of the products. And then inside of here, we do have a wither that is being milked for its ether gas, of course, which is being produced right here. And that leads me into more industrial foregoing. The hydroponic beds have really been pulling their weight, and I have very specific mystical agriculture crops that are inside of here that were being produced. Things like logs that we needed to complete the Mod Star, dirt essence that needed to complete it. Also, fire and water essence is just so useful for many different things. And the combination of those with the stone allows us to produce a lot of other resources as well. And then, of course, I can't forget the honeycombs, which is needed for productive bees. Now, if we take a trip up to the mech level, this is where we automated our first steps of mechanism. This is really all we needed for automating all of the mechanism machinery. We needed a base thermal evaporator, kind of a small one, really didn't need a whole lot. We automated this early on to be able to make the atomic disassembler. And then on the other side, this is where I highlighted a little bit more of the Super Factory Manager, where I use Super Factory Manager to automate the addition of new simulation chambers and the connection to our loot fabricator. Made it really easy for me to just add a new simulation chamber and allow the SFM cables to transfer over the prediction matrices immediately into the simulation chamber. Made this really, really easy to automate and made it really easy for me to just add any new mobs to the list when I needed them. Now, moving up into the next level is the Oritech level. And yes, this was a lot of fun, and I definitely broadened my knowledge of Oritech even more this playthrough, and I'm only going to experience more and more Oritech as we continue through more mod packs, as this is becoming more and more popular in these mod packs. There are some downsides to the mod that I'm definitely going to need to get used to, and that is just simply how machines handle items. And yeah, it's just kind of those things, those small little detail things. It's just something I'm going to have to get used to as time progresses on. But this mod was fantastic. I learned a lot this go around, and I definitely know next mod pack I play, I'm going to be learning even more. I've kind of got the power system down, and I now have kind of a better understanding of its item progression, which is something that I kind of need to know next time I play around with this mod. But we really needed this for superconductors, and we also used this to make the Manhattan module, which was a giant bomb, essentially, that we used to destroy the end. Now, also on this level, I use this to make casings. So I can technically make a bunch of casings very quickly without even using create. We are using bees to generate the strip logs, and I'm using block placers and breakers and clickers to automate this process without needing create. Very, very fun. And we used this to be able to make all of the create precision mechanisms. This right here behind you is the precision mechanism setup. It allows us to automate them, only making them as needed. But I could, for example, say keep 64 in stock, and it may start making them keep 120 in stock. There we go. And it's going to start producing them, keeping them kind of locked behind this vault, utilizing a threshold switch. Whole lot of logistics here, but man, very simple in concept. And then we also handled a tiny little bit of Ender IO. There actually wasn't much required of Ender IO in this pack, other than getting a soul binder up and running and producing a bunch of the same material. Moving up into the next level, we have the Dire area, or the Just Dire area. This is where we're automating the Shadow Pulse goo. We're automating all of the goo processes, and we're also automating Time Fluid, which allowed the Time Wand to function. This thing is super powerful, by the way, allowing you to tick accelerate blocks up to 256 times its base speed. Very, very quick in doing this. And notice when I did use the Time Wand, it automatically refilled. And that's due to me using an export card here, and I'm exporting Time Fluid to this slot that is defined right here. Pretty darn cool having this automatically go in, and all of that fluid is being stored down here in a fluid drawer, which is connected to a broad network throughout the entire vertical structure. Now, the time fluid and the crystals itself are being generated here via the swapper network, which is carrying this block section into the nether, then into the end, and then back into the overworld, and repeating that process over and over again. I also use this area too to make all of the singularities required for the Ultimate Star, and this is the main tech area. Pretty darn cool. We can take this elevator all the way back to the ground. The elevator, of course, is from the Create mod, and that leads us back to the main room. And this is only one of the 4 portals that we have. Now, after that, we got started with productive bees, and I use the SFM here to be able to do this. I do have this SFM code listed over on the Discord, so if you want to check that out, it is pinned in the general chat, where you can find the base SFM code right here, and it works wonders. And it handles everything from the items to the combs to the honey fluid to any other fluid that may be generated to the genes. Everything gets handled via the SFM code that is right there. Beautiful setup here, and it made the bee setup so much easier for me. And then through this portal, we have our Draconic evolution setup, and this, believe it or not, is still inside of the tower. I am using some very special blocks here. If we actually break this, you'll see that there is a wall behind this. This is Skyweave from ours that allows us to see through the building into the Skyblock. Very, very beautiful. This is also how I'm getting in stone. Like I mentioned before, we are using create, and we are sending items out of an interface by using a world transporter. Produces so much in stone, more than we'll ever need for anything. But this simple looking setup right here is basically Draconic Evolution's fusion crafting, all auto crafting handled. So we can actually use AE to do all of the auto crafting by utilizing a few modular routers, which is a fantastic setup for this. This over here is also a manual way for me to dump items into a container and then just pop into here and open up an item that needs to be crafted. For example, like if I needed to make these cores, I could just hit the move item button and it would automatically transfer the items and start the craft. Beautiful little setup. And then finally, we have, well, the mech area. And the mechanism area is where I am handling the productions of HDPE sheets, the production of fissile fuel, which runs all the way through here and is constantly being produced. These are producing hydrogen and oxygen, constantly in supply. And then we have our fusion reactor, which is of course producing waste, which was originally used to make polonium and plutonium. And this thing is generating quite a bit of power, 6.5 million RF per tick on each of these turbines, and the rest is still being voided. All of which is used to make antimatter, in which I have already basically generated another set, which we needed 36 of these antimatter pellets, and I've already almost generated back another set of those for another set of 18 stars. However, speaking of stars, we automated the stars, and that star automation is handled right here, where we're generating the Patrick star that gets dumped into this barrel. And then over here, we just take all of our star shards that's being generated from our bees, and our bees produce a ton of star shards. And anytime I need more shards and more stars, I can just simply accelerate this. These produce a ton of shards very quickly, allowing me to infinitely make infinitely make stars on demand. And those stars are all being kept track of right here. So we're at 817 stars, which is going to be more than enough to complete all of the creative items that I'm going to need today. And I tell you what, that right there is all it took to go from a tree to creative mode. So yeah, now back to those creative items. I do want to make a creative jetpack. Most of this stuff I should be able to take and simply craft. Like, let's go ahead and get a pattern for this made. This is how easy making patterns has become, by the way. It is drag and drop. I am able to make the pattern just like so, and I am able to just drop it back into my inventory. And there's an exporter up here on the assembly matrix that pulls those patterns automatically into itself, making the production of all of this stuff very, very easy. Now, the jetpack here, if I actually make this, I probably want to use my jetpack, which I believe is in here somewhere, or it's in here somewhere. Yeah, it's right here. So if we take this and we upgrade, let's go ahead and just make all of the base components. So this is also going to require a reactor nitro, SPS casings, and then the induction coils. Wow, I've got still more crafting to do, it looks like. But like I said, just showing you how simple these crafts can be. If I go to upgrade this, I can now pop into a regular crafting grid, and I can request all of those base items to be crafted up. And that should be handled fairly quickly. Yep, that took like no time at all. Let's make sure we have the rest of this. There we go. So that's going to craft the capacitor, and that's the last little bit needed. All of these things are kind of being combined together at the moment. Yes, just waiting on mechanism. Oh, and by the way, we could actually use the time one on the mechanism stuff. It just like instantly crafts it. So now with all of that made, there we go. We now have the creative jetpack. I wonder, how powerful is the creative jetpack? Oh boy, that's definitely fast. Hover mode, incredibly fast. It is at 100%. oh boy, it's like super uncontrollable. But while you are in hover mode, it is kind of like creative flight. I still would prefer creative flight over this, however. But yet again, another trophy to be added to the display stands. Now, next on the list is the creative source jar, which is a creative jar of source. I mean, it doesn't get any easier to understand than that. But to be able to get this, we do need the unobtainium source jars. And these are kind of expensive. They do require unobtainium and full source with a regular source jar to be able to actually make. And we're going to need quite a few unobtainium to do this. I think with my R's set up, this should be made pretty straightforward. All of this I've got to place around, place a jar in. It should consume from this jar, which should always stay full and should honestly refill. Yeah, all of these get refilled. And there we go. I have unobtainium source jars. I am going to have to fill these, however. And I think the filling of them should be possible right here. Yeah, it's going to grab all of the stuff, fill these jars. Once those are filled, going to start filling up these jars, which I believe contain, they can hold a lot more source. Now I'm working on filling up the unobtainium source jar. This is my last one, but I did find that you can tick accelerate the source splitters and the source relays, and those will actually send more source. That's kind of cool. And there we go. This is the last one required. And let's see, to be able to make the creative version, it doesn't even require source, just needs these containers filled with it and some source blocks. And so let's get this done. Placing all of these down and then also 4 blocks. And then the star. And this will give us a creative source tank. Very, very nice. Even though we do have, I mean, essentially a creative source. I mean, it just infinitely generates from our farms. Very, very powerful, by the way. But now we have an actual creative source jar. So good. And we can add this now down here. And also, this could be used to easily generate more source jars. You're able to connect this up to your AE system and then carry source through an AE network. Very, very cool. But it's another trophy. Now, with those items out of the way, we are now looking at some of the harder things to make just due to how much power is required to generate them. But the creative energy cube, we have a lot of options for unlimited power. There are 2 of these that I really want to make. I want to make the creative energy cube, which in my opinion is going to be a really nice decorative piece compared to all of the other creative sources of power. I'm also going to disregard the creative capacitor because this is just a creative source of power in your inventory. So I will disregard that. Not really something that is worth making. Also kind of tedious to make within Draconic Evolution. Not 100% automatable there. But the energy cube, that's going to be pretty easy to make. We need to make the creative energy cube, and then we need to level that up by having 4 of them with a star, and we need 2 billion FE to be sent to it. This all should be quite simple. But something else that I want that we can get inside of the same vein is going to be the creative energy cell, which we could use to attach to our AE system, giving us infinite power, but also like a near infinite power buffer, which I think is even more powerful within AE. So now I guess the only thing I really need to do is make the creative energy cube, which by the way is a trash can. You can even see the tags on it as identified as a power trash can. And it's something that you can make in that regard. But let's see, creative, and we'll get that started. We are going to need 4 of those. So this is kind of an expensive craft. Yeah, we need 4 of these. Actually, it's not as expensive as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, yeah, that's way cheaper than I thought this was going to be. That's going to craft really fast. Like, is it going to craft within the time here? I mean, it says like a minute, not even a minute, a second. Yes, come on, finish the craft, and there we go. Beautiful. There's all 4 of them. And then the 4 super dense energy cells, that should also be quite simple. This is just going to rely on this, and I just wanted to show you how fast, if I just accelerate that, then they just get instantly crafted. Honestly, the crusher here, kind of the bottleneck. But now up here is our power setup, and I think that we should be able to easily set this up. I can place these directly inside, all 4 of them, grab a star, and let this sort of take off. And before I know it, it's going to be built up. It's going to take just a few seconds here. And there we go. It is now done. Energy cube should be complete. Where is it at? It ended up going into the A system. There we go. Creative energy cube that is now set to infinite capacity. And as much as I would love to hook it into our system, honestly, it is kind of a trophy. I mean, I could place it in the world here instead of being actually on a display stand. I mean, that wouldn't be awful, would it? And then we can actually connect up to it. Yeah, we can definitely do this. We need our output side to be on the top. So I'm going to have the top output. Everywhere else can be disabled. And yeah, look at that. Whenever we disable all of the other sides, you can see here, and we can get a plug that needs to be configured for our output. And this plug needs to be connected to send. And that is going to send power indefinitely into our giant Draconic power cube. Oh my goodness. Yes, we are definitely filling this up. Is this maxing out power? It definitely is. Is that going to cause problems in other locations? Hopefully not. Yeah. Just making sure that this is still sending power out. But beautiful. We now have unlimited creative energy in the base. But now I've also got to do the AE system, and we just need to attach this directly to the AE system. That's going to get charged up. It's going to require the same amount of power, but very, very simple to do. And beautiful. We now have the creative energy cell, and this just needs to be attached somewhere onto our AE system. Honestly, we can attach it maybe right here, but I kind of want to just have it on display. Like, I should just make another one of these. You know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm going to make another one. It's like I said, it's so simple to just throw this together. So beautiful. And so with all of the power stuff out of the way, we have a couple of other things. Now, I do want to mention there is the creative compressor. This is from Pneumaticraft, which allows you to control the exact pressure inside of a Pneumaticraft system. And we also have the heating block, which allows you to adjust the heating or cooling for anything through Pneumaticraft. But we actually didn't do anything regarding Pneumaticraft in this playthrough, so not also making those items. But we do have a few other things to make. For example, we do have the max storage upgrade, and we have, in my opinion, two of the strongest items, the creative fluid tank and the creative chemical tank. Now, making these do require an all the mod star block, but we can make those so easily, and we're basically at the point where we can use them as decoration. But yes, patterns is going to be what we're going to need, and I'm going to need to automate ultimate tanks. That's all it requires here. Now, I'm going to tell you, like I said, these are some of the most powerful items in my opinion, allowing you to gain access to creative anything, so long as it is a liquid or a gas. And liquids can be turned into solids in this pack and can be done quite quickly. So yes, at this point, you now have access to literally anything. So creative fluid tank, let's go ahead and craft that. That is very, very easy to make. And while we're at it, might as well also get the creative chemical tank done. Now there are other fluids that are more powerful than others at this point. I mean, I'm going to say not really. I think at the end of this pack, this becomes less necessary. But I mean, there are a few things. If you wanted to maximize all of your materials, you could take like slurries and things like that, and you could just constantly produce slurries from the mechanism on and just have it infinitely producing materials. Or you could just take the liquid directly and keep casting it over and over again with productive metalworks. Now, something I will suggest is using a gauge dropper for this. If you're wanting to know how to get the actual fluids into here to turn them into a creative source, the dropper is kind of how you do that. Not that dropper, wrong dropper, the gauge dropper. So you would go into some sort of chemical, for example, antimatter. You'd pull out a little bit from your gauge dropper. Don't even need a whole bunch. You'd place this down, and then you would open the inventory and you would click the gauge dropper into here, and that actually converts it to an infinite source of whatever you want. Pretty darn cool. But for me, like I said, I just don't think there's really anything at this point that is super necessary for us. So what I'll have is I'll just have a creative source right here of these items. I mean, I guess we could put the fluid from the applied energistics in here for AE, but even then, I don't think it's necessary. So now we have one more item, and that is the max storage upgrades. This is going to use netherite upgrades, and it creates 8 of them from 1 shard. And there we go. We'll take a smithing template and throw that in, and we do have smithing templates constantly being generated. And so I will actually drop this smithing inside of here and this pattern into here. And we can now make unlimited storage upgrades. This is just from functional, by the way, unlimited max upgrades. Look at that. One of those definitely going in here. And you know what? Just for the fun of it, we can take this and let's just go ahead and upgrade this immediately. We'll take the one upgrade, put it in here. This now stores an unlimited amounts of all those materials. And you know what? Might as well for the fluid tank too. Like, why not? Why not? This is already almost about to hit max. Can we put this in a fluid tank? Oh, we can't put it in a fluid tank. That's interesting. Maybe we could put it in a fluid tank, but the storage is kind of near max, so I can't take these out. That right there, my friends, is every single creative item, in my opinion, that is worth making. And man, they made it so you can make the chemical tanks indefinitely. You can make just about anything you want indefinitely now. I mean, you just don't have access to full unlimited item stacks, so you can't do like physical items and dupe them. But I mean, this is still great enough. Now, if only there was an in-game after the in-game where you could utilize all of these creative items to their full potential. Well, maybe that's for another time. But guys, this has been such a great experience. Let me know down in the comments below, by the way, what you thought of this series. Did you enjoy it? And what was your thoughts on it compared to the regular All the Mods 10? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Let's make that a discussion. And guys, if you did enjoy, click that subscribe button. If you haven't already, give this video a huge thumbs up. And don't forget, if you're a supporter of any tier, it is World Download Day. And speaking of supporters, I do want to give my last hurrah, last thank you to the supporter of this episode. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Let's get that thanks happening. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to King War. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member, and not just supporting me on Discord, but also supporting me through Patreon. You absolute boss. I do appreciate you very, very much, going insanely above and beyond to support this channel and all of the work that I do, keeping food on the table, and I appreciate you very, very much. And guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next series. And as always, thanks for watching.